Good morning. I will open a call to order this meeting of the Executive Committee of the City of Minneapolis for March 4th, 2015. I'm Betsy Hodges, Chair of the committee, joined this morning by Council Vice President Elizabeth Glidden, Council President Barbara Johnson, and Councilmember Kevin Wright. We are a quorum of the committee. We have, I'm sorry, there's Cam and Councilmember Cam Gordon. I didn't see that. Look, we're a complete committee. We have one item on our agenda today for discussion about city stationery and graphics standards. And so we will have a presentation and discussion on that. Why don't we begin? Mr. Lively, good morning.
Thank you. Mayor Hodges, members of the committee, I'm Matt Lively, Interim Director in the Communications Department. Today we're happy to bring forward for your approval some graphic design and branding items that will help all of us as city employees present ourselves in a more professional and consistent way. So we're really excited about this opportunity. As you know, or probably know, Communications has been working with an enterprise staff team for some time now to update the city's brand identity in our business cards and business stationery. Deputy Director Bridget Bornstein and our graphic designer Cheryl Bowe have led this work, and you'll hear from both of them in a few minutes here. The staff team that we worked with across the city included the Office of the City Clerk, IT, Human Resources, and Finance. We gathered additional feedback on the business cards, letterhead envelopes from a wide range of city staff through City Talk and Minneapolis Matters. And today we're asking the committee to approve the graphic standards policy, which will do a couple of things. First, it will approve new business cards, letterhead, and envelopes to be used in all city correspondence. And second, today's action would adopt graphic standards for the city enterprise, which means that all materials designed for city use will have a consistent modern branding and look. Having a modern professional brand for city materials was one of the goals we wanted to achieve with this refresh. We also wanted to ensure that our business stationery, including our business cards, keeps up with the times, and we wanted to create a consistency in city materials. As you know, in developing the new standards, we've also developed an evolution of the city logo, which you'll hear more about shortly. That's an important part of keeping our visual identity current, but it's just one piece of the overall brand. Although graphic standards are very common for organizations like ours, the city of Minneapolis has never adopted standards before, so this is a step that's long overdue, and we're really excited to be moving in that direction. Our graphic designer, Cheryl Bowe, has done incredible work to develop the new look and graphic standards on top of the immense amount of graphic design work we ask from her every day. So I'd like to invite her up now to give you a high-level overview of the design elements. Cheryl?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Hodges, members of the committee. Okay. The new 4-color 2-sided business cards will cost less to print because they'll be created through digital printing instead of the more costly.
Please come a little closer to the mic so we can hear, and you can actually bend them down a little bit to bring them closer in as well. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. The new 4-color 2-sided business cards will cost less to print because they'll be created through digital printing instead of the more costly offset thermography or raised letter printing process. And letterhead. Following along with the business cards and our envelopes. And a component of the identity package is an evolution of the city logo with a fresh, contemporary design. Logo evolution is not new. It's been done over and over. Through extensive research, including best practices on brand identity for large organizations, we determined that an evolution of the sailboat image is more appropriate than developing an entirely new image. The logo, that's our current logo. This is our evolution. It's kind of fun to look at, where we've been in the past and where we are now. The logo is 4-color and prominently features the word Minneapolis. A small refreshed sailboat image becomes a secondary element in the logo, and it families with our partners with the Convention Center and Meet Minneapolis. And to department version. Some departments will have a version of the logo replacing City of Lakes with their department name. And we have a color palette, accent colors, enterprise fonts for consistency. And to help save staff time and make it easy for staff to follow the graphic standards, we'll come up and create a library of templates, including flyers, PowerPoints, reports, posters, etc. Staff will be urged to use these templates whenever possible, instead of attempting to design from scratch or pay for contract design work. So I'd like to introduce Bridget Bornstein to discuss the specifics of the standards.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Hodges, committee members. I'm not as soft-spoken, so I'll move this back a little bit. I'm Bridget Bornstein, Communications Deputy Director. An organization the size of the City of Minneapolis government should have graphic standards, of course, for all internal and external communication materials to project a professional and cohesive image. We haven't had this in the past, so we're excited to be bringing this forward. Of course, materials are created by all departments in our enterprise, so these standards will help promote a unified voice across our organization. A consistent look also helps the public trust that what they are receiving is truly coming from the city. Here are a few of the key elements in the graphic standards. They require the use of the city logo, the color palette, select fonts for all city materials, as well as a standard email signature block. Since everyone will be using the city logo, there may not be new logos or other graphic elements to represent departments or department divisions. The standards also put parameters on use of the city seal, and we've worked closely with the clerk's office on what that looks like, as well as an approval process before city resources are expended to develop custom looks, logos, or other art for city programs or initiatives, because that sort of thing can cost a lot of money, takes a lot of staff time, and in some cases, it's just plain not necessary. This also moves us to a system that Cheryl mentioned, where we'll have many templates available for staff. Staff has been asking us for this. They don't necessarily want to be creating from scratch. Now we'll have those resources available, and in fact, staff has started using some over the past year, and it's gone really well. That helps save staff time and helps ensure a professional, consistent look. This helps the city in a number of ways. It does build public trust, since they'll quickly be able to see that something comes from city government, since we're making sure that the city logo appears on all materials. Presents a consistent look, saves money, and saves staff time. So to wrap everything up, I'll turn it back to Matt Lively.
Thank you, Mayor Hodges, members of the committee. I just have a few additional notes to wrap up. If the council adopts these standards and business tools, letterhead, envelopes, et cetera, later this month, we'll begin rolling out the new designs right away. However, because we do plan to make this transition without incurring any costs, there will be a period of transition for some materials. Employees will be encouraged to use up remaining supplies of business cards, printed letterhead, and other things before placing new orders. And in order to keep costs to a minimum, logo art on current fleet vehicles, trash cans, ID tags, and things like that won't be replaced immediately, but rather over time as those things come up for regularly scheduled replacement. The version of the city logo used in the last few decades, or the evolution of it that we showed you earlier, is still likely to appear on some objects that would involve considerable cost to replace, such as manhole covers and signage. And last, I would like to really stress what great work Cheryl Bowe has done in developing this entire brand identity for the city. This kind of work can easily cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Cheryl has gone above and beyond to develop this identity in-house. So I'd like to say a thank you to Cheryl for all her work and the work that's yet to come when these standards are implemented. With that, we would be happy to take any questions.
Questions, Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is actually a little bit, well, it's a related question to what's going on here, but not specific to like our letterhead and things that the city employees do. And I'm not sure if it's really a question for you, Mr. Lively, or for Mr. Kronk, but it has to do with our protocols within the city when there is use of our name and potentially also our brand or our seal or whatever that is by another entity. And so I say this because recently there was an example by another public jurisdiction that did some usage of the name of the city of Minneapolis in a public context they designed the work, this other jurisdiction, and there was communication with the city, but I think we did not have, at least in my understanding, an established protocol for how the city then might review that element and make sure was the color right, was the font right, was the way of using our name and then using our brand appropriate. And as I was talking with, I have a colleague who works at the University of Minnesota, and in their communications hierarchy, and so she was kind of surprised at what happened with this, and maybe this is a unique example, the one that's coming to my mind, but she talked about how protective of the brand the University of Minnesota is. And so I would like to know how we have protocols that allow city staff throughout the enterprise to say, hey, there's a committee or whatever it is that needs to review whatever request there is to use our name. And if there's not, I'd like to make a staff direction here to ask the city coordinator to help lead a team to evaluate our established protocols and update them for usage of the city name and brand.
Mayor Hodges, Council Vice President Glidden. I think I can partially address what you're asking, which is within the standards itself, which is a pretty long document that really gets into a lot of technical details around usage of the elements and that sort of thing. It does call for any projects that are being worked on by outside partners or in conjunction with another entity, that they must also follow the standards in using our logo. Of course, that presumes that we are on board with that and know that they're doing it and have some control over that. So are you specifically referencing maybe instances where we don't know at all that they're doing that, or?
You know, because this was another public jurisdiction, I can safely, and this is about the monuments along 35W. So this is not a project that the city of Minneapolis led, but certainly MnDOT talks to us. There was some interaction on it, and I think the question is, was there enough direction from the city on a project that wasn't led by the city? So again, the city didn't lead this project, where then those city staff would have known we have a required process that requires city approval of some design elements, especially maybe not the overall. So this is not about criticizing or not the monument as a whole. It's a question about the usage of our name and what that looks like and the logo piece. So because we want that to look proper and consistent and whatever are those requirements. And we have such strict protocols around what we call public art. But somehow I think this was a crossover piece where our protocols didn't fully reach this project, and maybe that causes, I think, a re-examination of those protocols. And that's why I would suggest doing a staff direction to kind of look at that and make sure that we really do have the direction that takes what's in this longer document and then feeds out to those examples where it's probably the easy example where we are in control of the project. It's not the easy example when we haven't led the project and then somehow there is an item where there is the usage of our name comes up.
Mayor Hodges, Council Vice President Glidden, we would certainly be interested in looking at that further in coordination with the clerk's office or anyone else in the city who needs to be a part of that effort.
Then maybe I will go ahead then, since it seems like this may be helpful to do a staff direction that at least helps us review and then clarify as necessary our protocols relating to usage and oversight of city name and brand on projects within the city, but also by other jurisdictions that request the usage of the name of the city.
Then what I will do is I will move the staff recommendation on the standards and the whole refresh. So I've moved that, and then we'll take the staff direction then as part of, Elizabeth Glidden's staff direction as part of that motion. Any further, are there questions, other discussion? Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you, and I'm supportive of the action and the staff direction as well, but I just had a small question and a little comment. The question had to do with the timeline for the evolution of our logo. I noticed that for many of the other companies or the logos we were referencing, we had the years and followed that through. How far back does our little sailboat go with that first one? Do we know?
I will ask Bridget Bornstein to give you the details.
Mayor Hodges, Councilmember Gordon. I'll do my best from memory here as we've been going back through documents. What you see on the screen, the logo furthest to the left with the single sailboat, we were able to determine that that goes back to the 70s. Prior to that, a sailboat didn't exist. The city seal was used or no image was used at all. Then as we move to the second sailboat with the words around it in a circle, that brings us into the 1980s. Another version of that also in the 80s, 90s, and then this brings us up to our current logo. I believe that was also late 80s, 90s, if my recollection is correct. So we're looking at a period of about 30, 40 years of evolution of this logo.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll also note that there's been a little bit of a renegade crew on the city council, at least, that's taken some civil disobedience and refused to use the seal. Refused to use the logo on their business cards. Instead, have been using the seal. I'm assuming that there'd probably be some discretion you'd allow council offices to have, but is that going to be an option for other departments and other individuals if they prefer the seal over the logo?
Mayor Hodges, Councilmember Gordon, that's a good question, and that is something we've taken into account in the standards. Elected officials will have the option of using the seal on their business cards. Other folks within the city enterprise will not, but that will be an option. Here's a good example. Council members will have the option of including a seal on either the back or the front or both of your business cards. That's something we know that there's been an interest in the past. We do, as Bridget mentioned earlier, put some standards around how the seal can be used in the graphic standards. And really, we like to keep them as narrowly tailored as possible to official city business. And we feel that council member usage of this on business cards would be appropriate.
I appreciate that. I also wanted to note I appreciate the template for our stationery. I think it leaves more space and moving it up to the top. There's one piece that would be helpful. I don't think it has to be part of this action or anything, but with our communications is understanding or maybe having communications take care of what we're supposed to write down in terms of ADA accessibility. If you need this in another form or something like that, it would be good if that was provided. I know it's changed a little bit over time, and now we direct people to our neighborhood community relations department, but I think there should be a really solid standard of what number you call for translations and to get it in another format. And I'm sure you're working on that and everybody's nodding their heads. So I just wanted to
Mayor Hodges, Councilmember Gordon, yes, that's something we've also been paying a lot of attention to in developing this. You're right that those sort of language blocks are something that are primarily owned by NCR. We work with them on that, but we want to make sure that those are available and easy for folks to use. So many of the templates that Cheryl is creating and will create do include that language block option. A lot of times we will want it. There will be certain times when it doesn't make sense to include it, but for a lot of uses, there should be that language block. And NCR has developed some parameters around that in coordination with us. So as we roll this out, we'll need to be really clear on when that needs to be used, and then it's a part of many of the templates that are being developed.
Good. So I assume it would run along the bottom with this new stationery? Is that the theory?
Mayor Hodges, Councilmember Gordon, as it relates to the letterhead, the idea would be that you would place it wherever the end of the letter was. So it wouldn't necessarily be at the bottom of the front page, but it would be sort of a floating element that you could put in at the end, wherever that happens to be.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Reich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. First of all, it's really great to have a visual protocol that's professional, comprehensive, and very clear in its direction. So there's a lot of work to get to that point, so I appreciate that. I do have to make, and I know this wasn't part of the exercise and therefore the product that you had before us. But people do approach me. I have a lot of designers and artists, and well, and just frankly, a lot of people with opinions in my ward, probably not unique to my ward, that say the sailboat just does not resonate, and that would be probably putting the most polite face on the commentary. Has nothing to do with certain parts of town. As a matter of fact, it's not even a very central feature of what we are as a city. We're not Newport, Rhode Island, for example, where it's a central aspect of their identity. And again, I know it's not their exercise, and that's the explaining I do with the constituents that approach me on this, that wasn't our exercise. But at some point, we should ask the question, is that the symbol? And I think there are many people who think it's quite not. But I just wanted to make that for the record. Thanks. Because I get bugged by it, by this discussion, as you can imagine. Thanks.
Mayor Hodges, Councilmember Reich. I guess a few things I would mention in relation to that. So, the decision about what this visual signifier was made in the 1970s. It's something that's been decided to evolve over time. We think there's real value from a branding perspective in maintaining an identifiable look. A logo really is a visual signature that people recognize. A lot of times they're not even literal things. If you think a lot of the most recognizable logos that you know of, a lot of times it doesn't actually even have a literal tie to anything, but the idea is that it evokes recognition, it evokes a feeling. And one of the things that we like in the new evolution of the logo that is sort of an addition to what we've seen in the past is it really evokes a feeling of forward motion and momentum that the logo has not had before. And we think that well represents the city. So really, we approach this not as a wholesale rebranding, but as an evolution of our business tools, meaning our graphic identity, the business cards, letterhead, envelopes. So we had approached this from the beginning as an attempt to move all of that forward and modernize it. In general, though, best practices around branding for an organization our size would lead us to think that continuing to evolve is the right way to go and maintain that recognition, and that's one of the reasons we're proposing this.
As an exercise, thank you, Madam Chair. As an exercise in evolution, you executed it very well. It's very recognizable, a great product. But every now and then an organization will ask, is there a new name even? I mean, Lutheran Brotherhood's thriving, and there's a whole new look behind it. Not that we're going to rename ourselves the city of, fill in the blank, we're Minneapolis. But it's not uncommon to do the other exercise. Not to say that was appropriate now. I think all this work that you put together was actually prerequisite to even considering that exercise of what's the right image. So I just wanted to put that out there, but I appreciate the exercise that you did do.
Councilmember Gordon.
And I think that larger discussion is something that we've tried to have in the past. We were unable to come up with our new logo. I did want to I appreciated the forward motion, and I believe en avant, or whatever our little motto is. Doesn't that mean, what does that mean? Can you? Ever forward, thank you. So ever forward, so it's kind of reflected in that, not that we're changing our tagline from City of Lakes to ever forward, but we do have that other tagline in French on the seal, so.
Other questions? I have a very prosaic question. On the slide that shows the accent colors, what would those accent colors be used for?
Mayor Hodges, I think I can handle this, but Cheryl will correct me if I'm wrong. So these would be, let's say we're designing a poster or a flyer or a handout or whatever it is. The predominant color palette will be these blues, grays, greens that you've seen here. If you can picture something you might get from Target, you're going to see a lot of reddish orange. It's just sort of as a signifier. It's something that's associated with them. But knowing that there will be a need to diversify some colors, to add some visual interest, to highlight things, there is an accent color template provided that does coordinate with those. So it wouldn't be for large components of design materials, but really things to add some sort of visual interest in.
So would you imagine, for example, the yellow color replacing the small bit of green in the logo itself, or are these for things that would go around the image itself?
Mayor Hodges, good question. As written in the standards and would be pretty typical with the logo, is the colors in the logo should not be changed in its usage. So this would be for things that were designed around it in the broader context.
Okay. Further question or discussion? Then there is a motion on the floor to accept the staff recommendation and a staff direction regarding sort of looking more closely at outside entities using our materials and our images. Seeing no further discussion, all in approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, that carries. Seeing no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.